Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UFS Endeavour, watching the stars blur past the viewport as his ship jumped through hyperspace. The coffee in his hand had gone cold hours ago, but he barely noticed. His mind was focused on the impossible mission ahead of him. The year was 2387, and humanity had finally achieved its dream of joining the galactic community. But that dream had quickly turned into a nightmare. Two powerful alien races, the Zephyrians and the Nexari, had been fighting each other for over 300 years. Now their war was spreading into human space, and Earth's outer colonies were in danger. Morrison had been a soldier for most of his adult life. He had fought in the asteroid wars, commanded ships in battles against space pirates, and negotiated with hostile alien traders. But he had never faced anything like this. The Galactic Council had sent their best diplomats to try to make peace between the two warring species. All of them had failed. "Captain, we're receiving another transmission from Earth Command," said Commander Lisa Hayes, his second-in-command. She was a tall woman with short brown hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Morrison had served with her for 5 years, and he trusted her judgment more than anyone else's. "Put it through to my ready room," Morrison replied. He handed his cold coffee to a junior officer and walked to the small office behind the bridge. The communication screen flickered to life, showing the tired face of Admiral Robert Kane. "Jake, I know this mission seems impossible," the Admiral said without any greeting. His voice carried the weight of desperation. "But you're our last hope. The Zephyrians and Nexari have both agreed to meet with a human mediator. They refuse to talk to anyone else." Morrison sat down heavily in his chair. "Why me, Admiral? I'm a military man, not a diplomat. There are people with years of training in alien relations." "That's exactly why we need you," Kane replied. "Every trained diplomat who has tried to negotiate with these species has failed. They follow protocols and procedures that don't work with beings who have been at war for centuries. You think differently. You find solutions where others see only problems." The screen showed images of destroyed space stations and burning planets. Morrison had seen the reports, but seeing the destruction again made his stomach turn. Entire worlds had been caught in the crossfire between the two alien empires. "What do we know about them?" Morrison asked. "The Zephyrians are crystalline beings," Kane explained. "They're tall, about 8 feet on average, and their bodies are made of some kind of living crystal that changes color based on their emotions. They communicate through sound frequencies that can actually damage equipment if they get angry enough." The screen showed a fuzzy image of a Zephyrian delegation. The beings looked like walking sculptures made of gleaming crystal, beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "The Nexari are different," Kane continued. "They're a fusion of organic and mechanical parts. They've been changing their own bodies for centuries, adding machines to make themselves stronger and smarter. They can live for thousands of years and adapt to almost any environment." The next image showed a Nexari group. Morrison found them disturbing to look at. They had once been some kind of humanoid species, but now they were more machine than flesh. Cables and metal implants covered their bodies and their eyes glowed with artificial light. "Both species consider themselves superior to all other life forms," Kane said. "They've been fighting over territory in the Andromeda sector, but the war has become something more than that. It's become a matter of pride and honor. Neither side will back down." Morrison studied the tactical reports on his desk. The numbers were staggering. Both alien fleets contained thousands of ships, each one more advanced than anything humanity had ever built. If they decided to fight their final battle near human space, the destruction would wipe out every colony within 50 light years. "Where is the meeting taking place, Meow?" Morrison asked. "Kepler Station, orbiting the dead star in the Titan's Edge system," Kane replied. "It's neutral territory, built specifically for diplomatic meetings between hostile species. But Jake, our intelligence suggests that both fleets are moving toward the station. They're not coming to talk peace. They're positioning for what looks like their biggest battle yet." Morrison felt a chill run down his spine. "So they're using the peace talks as cover for military movements." "That's what we think," Kane confirmed. "The Galactic Council believes both species have decided to end their war with one massive battle. They want to destroy each other completely. and they want witnesses to remember their final fight. The communication ended, leaving Morrison alone with his thoughts. He walked back to the bridge and found Lisa Hayes studying the star charts. "How long until we reach Kepler Station?" he asked. 18 hours, Captain," she replied. "I've been reading the cultural files on both species. This isn't going to be like any negotiation we've ever done." Morrison nodded. Dr. Amy Parker, their xenobiologist, approached with a tablet full of data. She was young for such an important position, but her understanding of alien psychology was better than anyone else in the fleet. "Captain, I found something interesting in the historical records," she said. "The war between the Zephyrians and Nixari started over mining rights in the Andromeda sector. But that was 3 centuries ago. The resources they were fighting over have been exhausted for decades." "So why are they still fighting?" Morrison asked. "That's the question," Dr. Parker replied. "Every report suggests that the war has become more important to them than the reason it started. It's like they need the conflict to exist." Lieutenant Colonel Steve Martinez, the ship's security chief, joined their conversation. He was a big man with scars from a dozen battles, and he had the look of someone who had seen too much violence. "Captain, I've been analyzing their fleet movements," he said. "Both sides are bringing everything they have to this fight. If they engage near Kepler Station, the energy release will destroy the entire system." Morrison looked at his senior staff. These were good people, experienced officers who had served with him through many dangerous missions. But none of them had ever faced anything like this. "Recommendations?" he asked. "We should prepare for the worst," Martinez said. "If the peace talks fail, we need to be ready to evacuate the station and get as far away as possible before the shooting starts." "I disagree," Dr. Parker said. "I think there's something we're missing about these species. The fact that they both agreed to meet with a human mediator suggests they want something from us." Lisa Hayes checked her instruments. "Captain, we're picking up massive energy signatures ahead. Both alien fleets are already at Kepler Station." Morrison felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Millions of lives depended on his success in the next few days. He had to find a way to make peace between 2 species that had been killing each other for 3 centuries. "All right, people," he said. "Let's go try to save the galaxy." Kepler Station hung in space like a massive metal flower, its arms stretching out around the dead star it orbited. Morrison had seen pictures of the diplomatic facility, but nothing had prepared him for its actual size. The station was built to house thousands of beings from dozens of different species, with sections designed for every type of environment imaginable. The UFS Endeavour docked at the human section of the station, one of the smaller areas since humanity was still new to galactic politics. As Morrison walked through the airlock, he could feel the vibrations running through the station's hull. Something was making the entire structure shake with a low, constant hum. "Captain, are you feeling that?" Lisa Hayes asked as they made their way down the corridor. The metal walls around them seemed to pulse with energy. "I feel it," Morrison replied. "Dr. Parker, what's causing those vibrations?" Amy Parker checked her scanner. "The readings are off the charts, Captain. There are 2 different energy sources, creating interference patterns throughout the station. I think one is coming from the Zephyrian section and the other from the Nixari area." Steve Martinez, walking behind them with a security team, looked uncomfortable. "This doesn't feel right, Captain. My men are reporting headaches and nausea. Whatever those aliens are doing, it's affecting us just by being near them." Morrison tried to ignore the growing headache behind his eyes. The station's directory showed that the main conference room was in the central section, equidistant from all the different species' quarters. As they walked, the vibrations got stronger and the air itself seemed to shimmer with energy. They passed through several security checkpoints, each one staffed by different alien species. The guards watched the human delegation with curious eyes, but Morrison noticed something else in their expressions. Fear. These experienced galactic security officers were afraid of what was happening on their own station. The conference room was a large circular chamber with a high ceiling and walls made of some kind of clear material that showed the stars beyond. In the center was a round table with chairs designed for different body types. But what caught Morrison's attention immediately were the other two delegations already present. The Zephyrians stood on one side of the room, and Morrison understood why the station was shaking. There were 5 of them, each about 8 feet, tall and made of what looked like living crystal. Their bodies were translucent and glowed with internal light that shifted from blue to red to purple. The sound they made was unlike anything Morrison had ever heard. It wasn't exactly music and it wasn't exactly speech, but it filled the room with harmonic frequencies that made his teeth ache. The leader of the Zephyrian group was taller than the others, with crystal formations that looked like a crown growing from her head. Her body pulsed with angry red light, and the sound she produced was deep and threatening. Morrison's translator identified her as War Prima Kethalara. On the opposite side of the room stood the Nexari delegation. Morrison had to force himself not to stare. They had once been living beings, but now they were something between flesh and machine. Metal cables ran under their skin. Glowing implants covered their bodies, and their eyes had been replaced with mechanical sensors that whirred and clicked as they moved. The Nexari leader was the most changed of all. Flesh Admiral Vexthor had very little organic material left visible. Most of his body was covered in biomechanical armor that seemed to be part of his actual body. Tubes and wires connected different parts of his form, and Morrison could see green fluid flowing through transparent sections of his augmented limbs. Both groups turned to look at the humans as they entered the room. The temperature seemed to drop several degrees. So these are the primitives the Council sent to mediate our conflict, War Prima Kethalara said. Her voice created harmonics that made the conference table crack down the middle. Flesh creatures barely evolved beyond their animal origins, Flesh Admiral Vexthor replied. His words came from a mechanical voice box that made clicking sounds between each word. The Council insults us both by sending such inferior beings. Morrison stepped forward, trying to project confidence despite the hostile energy filling the room. I'm Captain Jake Morrison, representing the Terran Federation and the Galactic Council. We're here to help find a peaceful solution to your conflict. Here, Zephyrian leader's crystal body flashed bright red. The harmonic sound she produced was so intense that several light fixtures in the ceiling shattered. There is no peaceful solution, human. The Nexari have dishonored themselves for 3 centuries. Only their complete destruction will satisfy justice. Vexthor's biomechanical systems released a cloud of vapor that made Morrison's eyes water and his throat burn. The crystalline parasites speak of honor while they destroy worlds with their primitive sound weapons. They must be eliminated so that proper evolution can continue. Dr. Parker moved closer to Morrison and whispered urgently, Captain, their communication methods are aggressive by nature. The Zephyrians can't speak without creating destructive frequencies. And the Nexari release chemical compounds that trigger fight-or-flight responses in other species. They're not just being hostile, they literally can't communicate without being threatening. Morrison realized that every other diplomatic mission had probably failed at this exact point. The aliens weren't just refusing to cooperate, their very presence made peaceful discussion impossible. But as he watched the two groups, he noticed something interesting. Neither delegation was looking at each other directly. The Zephyrians faced toward the humans, and so did the Nexari. Both groups seemed to be performing their hostility for the human audience rather than directing it at their enemies. War Prima Kethalara, Flesh Admiral Vexthor, Morrison said, raising his voice to be heard over the harmonic vibrations and mechanical clicking. I understand you've been at war for 300 years, but what started this conflict? Territory, Kethalara replied, her crystal body shifting to orange. The Nexari invaded sacred Zephyrian space in the Andromeda sector. Resources, Vexthor said at the same time, his mechanical parts whirring faster. The crystal beings blocked proper evolutionary development by claiming entire star systems. Lisa Hayes checked her datapad. Captain, according to our records, the Andromeda sector has been completely mined out for over 50 years. There's nothing left there worth fighting over. Both alien leaders went silent for a moment. The harmonic vibrations from the Zephyrians changed tone, becoming lower and more complex. The Nexari leader's biomechanical systems cycled through different colored lights. The resources are not important, Kethalara finally said. This is about the symphony of war. 3 centuries of perfect musical combat cannot be abandoned. Evolution requires pressure, Vexthor added. This conflict has driven both our species to achieve heights never reached before. Peace would mean stagnation and decline. Morrison felt pieces of a puzzle clicking together in his mind. These beings weren't fighting over territory or resources anymore. They were fighting because the war itself had become essential to their cultures. Steve Martinez stepped closer to Morrison. "Captain, I'm getting reports from our sensors. Both alien fleets are moving into attack formation around the station. Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it fast." Morrison looked around. The conference room. The table was cracked from Zephyrian harmonics. The air was thick with Nexari chemical releases, and both delegations were radiating hostility that made his entire team sick. Traditional diplomacy was impossible here, but maybe that was the point. Maybe these species had agreed to meet with humans precisely because they knew human mediators would fail, just like all the others. Maybe they wanted witnesses for something else entirely. "How long until your fleets are in position?" Morrison asked. Both alien leaders looked surprised by the question. Kethalara's crystal body flashed through several colors before settling on deep purple. "The final movement will be complete in 6 standard hours. All units will be in optimal combat formation by then," Vexthor confirmed, his mechanical voice carrying what might have been satisfaction. Morrison realized with growing horror that the peace talks were just a performance. Both species had already decided to fight their final battle, and they wanted the humans to watch and remember their glorious destruction. Morrison made a decision that shocked his entire team. Instead of continuing the failed peace talks, he asked both alien leaders for permission to visit their fleets. Every diplomatic protocol in the book said this was wrong, but Morrison had realized that understanding these species meant seeing them in their natural environment. "You want to do what?" Lisa Hayes asked when Morrison explained his plan. They were back in their quarters on Kepler Station, and she was looking at him like he had lost his mind. "I need to see how they really live," Morrison replied. "The conference room isn't showing me who they actually are, it's just showing me their anger." Dr. Parker looked up from her notes. "Captain, visiting their military ships during active war preparations could be seen as spying. Both species might consider it an act of aggression. Or it might be the first honest thing any human mediator has tried to do," Morrison said. "They agreed to talk to us, which means they want something from humanity. I need to find out what that is." Steve Martinez was cleaning his sidearm, a nervous habit he had developed over years of dangerous missions. "Captain, if you're going aboard their ships, I'm coming with you." "No," Morrison said firmly. "This has to be me alone. Both species see humans as weak and primitive. If I bring security, it proves their point. If I go alone, it shows respect for their strength." The next morning, Morrison received approval from both War Prima Kethalara and Flesh Admiral Vexthor to visit their flagships. Lisa Hayes walked him to the shuttle bay, her face tight with worry. "Jake, if this goes wrong, Earth loses its best chance at preventing a war that could destroy half the galaxy," she said. "If I don't try this, the war happens anyway," Morrison replied. "At least this way we might learn something useful." The shuttle trip to the Zephyrian flagship took 20 minutes through space filled with warships. Morrison had never seen so many military vessels in one place. The Zephyrian fleet stretched across the star system like a crystal forest, each ship gleaming with internal light and humming with harmonic frequencies. The flagship was called Crystal Dominion, and it was beautiful in a way that made Morrison's chest tight. The entire ship seemed to be grown rather than built, with flowing curves and crystal spires that caught starlight and turned it into rainbow patterns. War Prima Kethalara met him at the airlock. Up close, she was even more impressive than in the conference room. Her crystal body was at least 9 feet tall, and the formations growing from her head and shoulders looked like a crown made of living jewels. "Welcome aboard the Crystal Dominion, Human Morrison," she said. Her harmonic voice was softer here, creating music instead of the harsh sounds from the meeting. As they walked through the ship's corridors, Morrison realized that everything around him was alive. The walls pulsed with gentle light. The floor felt warm under his feet, and the air itself seemed to sing with quiet melodies. "Your ship is incredible," Morrison said honestly. "This is not just a ship," Kethalara replied. "This is our greatest composition. Every battle we fight adds new harmonies to the music of war. For 3 centuries we have been creating the most beautiful symphony in the galaxy." She led him to the ship's heart, a massive chamber where hundreds of Zephyrians stood in perfect formation. Their bodies created a living orchestra, each one producing different tones and frequencies that combined into something Morrison had never imagined possible. "Listen," Kethalara said, and Morrison closed his eyes. The music was not just sound, it was emotion and memory and hope, all woven together into patterns that made his soul ache with their beauty. He could hear the history of the Zephyrian people in those harmonies, their struggles and victories and dreams for the future. "This is why we fight," Kethalara explained. "Each battle with the Nexari creates new movements in our eternal symphony. Our war is not destruction, human Morrison. It is the greatest artistic achievement in galactic history." Morrison opened his eyes and looked at the Zephyrian war prima. "But what happens when the war ends?" Her crystal body flickered through several colors before settling on deep blue. "If the war ends, the music stops. Our people would lose their purpose. We would become silent crystals with no song to sing." The shuttle ride to the Nexari flagship gave Morrison time to think about what he had learned. The Zephyrians were not just fighting a war. They were composing it like a piece of music that had been building for 300 years. The Nexari ship was completely different from the Crystal Dominion. The bioship evolutionary apex looked like something that had been grown in a laboratory, with organic curves covered in mechanical additions. Cables and tubes ran along its surface, and Morrison could see green fluid flowing through transparent sections of the hull. Flesh Admiral Vexthor met him at the airlock, his biomechanical form clicking and whirring as he moved. "Human Morrison, you honor us with your presence. Few organic beings have ever seen our greatest evolutionary achievement." The inside of the Nexari ship was disturbing and fascinating at the same time. The walls were alive, breathing slowly and adjusting their shape as the ship's inhabitants moved through the corridors. Morrison could see Nexari crew members plugging themselves directly into the ship's systems, becoming part of the vessel's nervous system. "Your ship is alive," Morrison said. "All our ships are alive," Vexthor replied, with pride. "We have evolved beyond the primitive separation between self and tool. Our vessels are extensions of our bodies, and we are extensions of theirs." They entered a vast chamber where Morrison could see the ship's evolution in action. Nexari engineers were constantly modifying themselves and their equipment, adding new mechanical parts, growing new organic components, and testing different combinations of flesh and machine. "This is our war laboratory," Vexthor explained. "Every battle with the Zephyrians forces us to adapt and improve. We have evolved more in 3 centuries of conflict than in the previous 3 millennia of peace." Morrison watched a Nexari technician replace his left arm with a more advanced mechanical limb, then immediately begin work on upgrading his partner's neural implants. "You're using the war as evolutionary pressure." "Exactly," Vexthor said, his mechanical voice carrying satisfaction. "The Zephyrians are the perfect enemy. They force us to constantly improve our biomechanical integration. Without this war, our evolution would stagnate. We would become weak and primitive." Morrison spent the next hour touring the ship and speaking with different Nexari crew members. Each one had been modified in unique ways, their bodies adapted for specific functions within the ship's living systems. But they all said the same thing. The war with the Zephyrians was the greatest gift their species had ever received. As the shuttle carried him back to Kepler Station, Morrison felt sick. He had discovered something that made the situation infinitely worse than he had imagined. Both alien species had become dependent on their war. The Zephyrians needed it for their art, and the Nexari needed it for their evolution. Lisa Hayes met him at the shuttle bay. "How did it go?" she asked. "Worse than I thought," Morrison replied. "They don't want to stop fighting. They can't stop fighting. The war has become essential to their survival as cultures. Dr. Parker joined them as they walked back to their quarters. Captain, I've been analyzing the energy readings from both fleets. They're not just preparing for battle. They're preparing for something much bigger. What do you mean? Morrison asked. The power buildup suggests they're planning to use weapons that will destroy everything in this star system, she said. Both fleets are positioning for mutual annihilation. Morrison stopped walking. They're not planning to win the war. They're planning to end it by destroying each other completely. But why would they do that? Lisa Hayes asked. Morrison thought about the beautiful music on the Crystal Dominion and the incredible evolution aboard the evolutionary Apex. Because they think dying gloriously in battle is better than living without purpose. They want to end their symphony and their evolution with the greatest finale possible. Steve Martinez appeared around the corner, his face grim. Captain, we're intercepting communications between the fleets. Both sides are talking about the final performance and the ultimate adaptation. Whatever they're planning, it happens in less than 12 hours. Morrison realized that humanity had not been invited to mediate peace. They had been invited to witness the greatest murder-suicide in galactic history. Both alien species wanted humans to survive and remember their glorious final battle. But Morrison refused to accept the role of passive observer. If the Zephyrians needed their war for art, and the Nexari needed it for evolution, then maybe humanity could give them something better than mutual destruction. He just had to figure out what that could be before both fleets turned this star system into a graveyard. Morrison stood in the observation deck of Kepler Station, watching the two alien fleets move into their final positions. The Zephyrian ships glowed like deadly jewels in the darkness, while the Nexari bioships writhed through space like living creatures hunting for prey. In 6 hours, both fleets would be in perfect position for their planned mutual destruction. Captain, we're receiving evacuation orders from the Galactic Council, Lisa Hayes reported. They want all non-combatant ships to retreat to a safe distance before the battle begins. They're giving up, Morrison said quietly. The entire galaxy is ready to watch these two species destroy each other. Dr. Parker approached with her scanner still beeping with readings from both fleets. Captain, I've been studying the data from your visits to their ships. I think I understand what they really want from us. Morrison turned to face her. Explain. Both species have evolved beyond what they were when this war started, she said. The Zephyrians have become living music, and the Nexari have become something between flesh and machine. But they've reached the limits of what they can achieve alone. What do you mean? Lisa Hayes asked. Dr. Parker pulled up holographic displays showing the internal structure of both alien fleets. The Zephyrians have perfected their harmonic technology. They can't make their music any more complex or beautiful than it already is. The Nexari have reached the peak of biomechanical evolution. They can't adapt any further without losing what makes them alive. Morrison studied the displays. So they're planning to end their evolution with one final perfect moment. Exactly, Dr. Parker said. They think they've achieved everything possible, so they want to die at the height of their power rather than slowly decline. Steve Martinez joined their group, his face showing the strain of the past few days. Captain, I've been thinking about something. Both alien leaders seemed surprised when you asked to visit their ships. No previous mediator had ever made that request. Because previous mediators were trying to stop the war, Morrison realized. They never tried to understand why these species needed to fight. Lisa Hayes checked her instruments. Captain, we're getting a priority transmission from Earth Command. Admiral Kane wants to speak with you immediately. Morrison took the call in his quarters. Admiral Kane's face appeared on the screen, looking older and more tired than Morrison had ever seen him. Jake, the Council has declared the mediation a failure, Kane said. You're ordered to evacuate immediately. Both alien fleets are powering weapons that could crack a planet. Admiral, I think there might be another way, Morrison said. These species don't really want to die. They want to keep growing and evolving. They just don't know how to do it without war. What are you thinking? Kane asked. Morrison looked out his viewport at the alien fleets. What if we gave them something better than mutual destruction? What if we offered them a new kind of challenge? Jake, you've got 5 hours before they start shooting at each other. What could possibly change their minds now? Humanity, Morrison said simply. We're the one thing in this galaxy that both species have never encountered before. We're not crystalline like the Zephyrians, and we're not biomechanical like the Nexari. We're something completely different. Kane was quiet for a moment. What exactly are you proposing? Morrison had been thinking about this idea since his visits to both ships. Both species want to prove they're superior to each other. What if instead of fighting each other to destruction, they competed to enhance humanity? The Zephyrians could try to teach us their harmonic technology, and the Nexari could share their biomechanical fusion techniques. That's incredibly dangerous, Jake. We don't know what their technologies might do to human beings. It's less dangerous than letting them destroy half the galaxy, Morrison replied. And think about it, Admiral. If both species focus on competing to improve humanity instead of destroying each other, they get to keep their competitive drive while actually building something instead of destroying it. Kane considered this. You'd be asking humans to volunteer as test subjects for alien enhancement technologies. I'd be asking humans to do what we've always done best, Morrison said. Adapt and survive. Both species think we're primitive and weak. Let's prove them wrong. After the call ended, Morrison gathered his senior staff in the conference room. He explained his plan, watching their faces as they realized what he was suggesting. Captain, this is insane, Steve Martinez said. You're talking about letting 2 hostile alien species experiment on human volunteers. I'm talking about giving them something more interesting than death, Morrison replied. Dr. Parker, from a scientific standpoint, is this possible? Dr. Parker was quiet for a long moment, running calculations on her tablet. Theoretically, yes. Humans are incredibly adaptable. Our genetic diversity and neural plasticity might actually make us ideal subjects for both types of enhancement. But we don't know what the long-term effects would be, Lisa Hayes pointed out. We know what the long-term effects of their current plan will be, Morrison said. Complete annihilation of both species and massive destruction throughout this sector of space. Morrison called for volunteers from the crew of the Endeavour. To his surprise, more than half the ship volunteered within an hour. The idea of helping to prevent a galactic war was enough to overcome their fear of unknown alien technologies. Lieutenant Danny Walsh, the ship's chief engineer, was one of the first to volunteer. Captain, I've seen what both species can do with their technologies. If we can learn even a fraction of their capabilities, it would advance human civilization by centuries. Morrison selected 12 volunteers, 6 for each enhancement program. Then came the difficult part, convincing the alien leaders to accept his proposal. He called for another meeting in the conference room. Both War Prima Kethalara and Flesh Admiral Vexthor arrived with the same aggressive energy as before, but Morrison noticed something different in their behavior. They seemed more curious about the humans than hostile. War Prima Kethalara, Flesh Admiral Vexthor, Morrison began. I have a proposal that might interest you both. Speak quickly, human, Kethalara said, her crystal body pulsing with impatient, orange light. Our fleets will achieve perfect battle formation soon. What if instead of proving your superiority through mutual destruction, you proved it through creation? Morrison asked. I propose a competition. Both of your species would attempt to enhance human volunteers using your respective technologies. Whichever species produces more significant improvements in human capabilities would be declared the winner. Both alien leaders went completely silent. The harmonic vibrations from the Zephyrians stopped, and the mechanical clicking from the Nexari ceased. Morrison had never heard the conference room so quiet. You would offer your people as subjects for enhancement? Vexthor asked, his mechanical voice carrying a note of disbelief. Willing volunteers, Morrison confirmed. Humans who want to help, prevent a war and advance their species at the same time. Kethalara's crystal body cycled through several colors. This is unprecedented. No species has ever volunteered for harmonic integration. And no species has survived biomechanical fusion without centuries of preparation, Vexthor added, But humans are different, Morrison said. We're adaptable in ways your species aren't. We might be able to handle both types of enhancement. The two alien leaders looked at each other for the first time since the meetings began. Morrison could see them considering the possibilities. If we agreed to this competition, Kethalara said slowly, what would prevent the losing species from claiming the results were invalid? The enhancements would speak for themselves, Morrison replied. Improved capabilities are measurable. There would be no question about which approach was more successful. Vexthor's biomechanical systems whirred faster. And what would the winning species gain from this victory? Morrison smiled. The satisfaction of proving their superiority without destroying the only competition worthy of their abilities, and the chance to continue improving and evolving through future collaborations with humanity. Both alien leaders were quiet again, but Morrison could see they were seriously considering his proposal. For the first time in 3 centuries, they had been offered something more interesting than war. 3 weeks later, Morrison stood in the converted cargo bay of Kepler Station, watching something that had never happened before in galactic history. Humans were working side by side with 2 alien species that had been killing each other for 3 centuries. Both War Prima Kethalara and Flesh Admiral Vexthor had agreed to Morrison's proposal, but with their own conditions. The competition would last exactly 1 year. Each species would work with 6 human volunteers. At the end of the year, the enhanced humans would demonstrate their new abilities, and independent judges from the Galactic Council would declare a winner. The Zephyrian enhancement area looked like a crystal cathedral. Resonance Master Quindar, a smaller Zephyrian with silver crystal formations, had arrived from the home fleet to oversee the harmonic integration process. The chamber was filled with crystalline structures that hummed with gentle music, creating patterns of sound that made the air itself shimmer. Lieutenant Tony Blake, a young Marine who had volunteered for the Zephyrian program, lay on a crystal table while harmonic frequencies washed over his body. Morrison could see changes happening in real time. Blake's skin had taken on a slight, crystalline quality, and when he spoke, his voice carried new harmonic undertones. "How do you feel, Lieutenant?" Morrison asked. Blake sat up slowly, his movements creating tiny musical notes in the air around him. "Sir, it's incredible. I can hear the molecular structure of everything around me. The station, the walls, even the air itself has its own music." Quindar's crystal body pulsed with satisfied blue light. "The human neural patterns are more adaptable than we predicted. Young Blake is learning to manipulate matter through harmonic resonance faster than any Zephyrian child." On the other side of the bay, the Nexari enhancement area looked like a medical laboratory crossed with a machine shop. Evolution Guide Mexarin, a Nexari scientist with more mechanical parts than most of her species, was carefully installing biomechanical implants in the human volunteers. Engineer Lisa Kim was the most advanced of the Nexari subjects. Half of her left arm had been replaced with a biomechanical limb that could change shape and function depending on what she needed to do. Cables ran under her skin, connecting the artificial parts to her nervous system. "The integration is proceeding better than calculated," Mexarin reported to Morrison. Her mechanical voice carried notes of excitement. "Human immune systems are not rejecting our biotech. Instead, they are adapting to work with it." Morrison watched Lisa Kim use her enhanced arm to interface directly with a computer terminal, her consciousness flowing into the machine and manipulating data at speeds no unenhanced human could match. "Any side effects?" Morrison asked. "None that we can detect," Mexarin replied. "The humans are improving our technology as much as our technology is improving them." Dr. Parker approached with her scanner, which had been running constantly for the past 3 weeks. "Captain, you need to see this. The results are beyond anything we expected." She showed Morrison the data on her tablet. Both groups of enhanced humans are developing capabilities that neither alien species achieved on their own. Tony Blake isn't just learning Zephyrian harmonic manipulation. He's creating new sound patterns that the Zephyrians have never heard before. Morrison looked at the recordings of Blake's harmonic experiments. The young Marine was producing frequencies that could reshape metal, create force fields, and even generate small amounts of matter from pure energy. "And Lisa Kim?" Morrison asked. She's pushing Nexari biotechnology in directions they never considered, Dr. Parker replied. Her enhanced immune system is improving their biomechanical components, making them more efficient and durable. She's essentially evolving their technology while it's inside her body. Steve Martinez joined them, looking concerned despite the amazing progress. Captain, both alien leaders are spending more and more time with their human subjects. I think they're getting attached to the people they're enhancing. Morrison had noticed this too. Quindar had started referring to the human volunteers as her harmonic children, while Mexarin called her subjects the next step in evolution. Both alien scientists were becoming protective of their human partners. Maybe that's not a bad thing, Morrison said. If they care about the humans, they're less likely to hurt them. Lisa Hayes approached with a report from the communications center. Captain, we're getting some interesting data from both fleets. The Zephyrian ships are producing new musical patterns they've never created before, and the Nexari vessels are showing technological improvements that weren't there a month ago. What do you mean? Morrison asked. The enhanced humans aren't just learning from the aliens, she explained. They're teaching them too. Tony Blake's new harmonic discoveries are being shared throughout the Zephyrian fleet, and Lisa Kim's biomechanical improvements are being integrated into Nexari ship systems. Morrison realized that something incredible was happening. The competition wasn't just enhancing the human volunteers, it was advancing both alien civilizations in ways their war never had. Over the following months, Morrison watched the project grow beyond anything he had imagined. The enhanced humans were not just adopting alien technologies, they were combining them in impossible ways. Sergeant Danny Brooks, one of Blake's teammates in the Zephyrian program, discovered that he could use harmonic frequencies to guide biomechanical systems. During a demonstration, he used sound waves to control a Nexari repair drone with perfect precision. Meanwhile, engineer Sarah Johnson from the Nexari program found that her biomechanical implants could analyze and reproduce Zephyrian crystal formations. She grew living crystalline structures that were stronger and more beautiful than anything either species had created. The alien scientists were amazed by these developments. Quindar and Mexarin began working together for the first time, sharing data and observations about their human subjects. This is unprecedented, Quindar told Morrison during one of their regular meetings. We believed Zephyrian harmonics and Nexari biomechanics were incompatible. The humans are proving us wrong. Mexarin agreed, her mechanical systems buzzing with excitement. Human neuroplasticity allows them to bridge the gap between our technologies. They are creating hybrid systems we never thought possible. Morrison received regular reports from both War Prima Kethalara and Flesh Admiral Vexthor. Both leaders were fascinated by the progress of their human partners. The competition was still active, but it had evolved into something more like collaboration. As the year progressed, Morrison began to notice changes in the behavior of both alien fleets. The Zephyrian ships were producing more complex and beautiful music than ever before, incorporating harmonic discoveries made by their human partners. The Nexari vessels were evolving faster than they had in decades, integrating biomechanical innovations inspired by human biology. Both species were achieving new heights of development, but they were doing it through cooperation with humans rather than warfare with each other. Dr. Parker presented Morrison with her final analysis 6 months into the project. Captain, both groups of enhanced humans have surpassed the individual capabilities of either alien species, but more importantly, they're creating technologies that require both Zephyrian and Nexari knowledge to function. Morrison looked at the data showing hybrid harmonic biomechanical systems that could accomplish things neither species had ever dreamed of. So the competition isn't determining which species is superior. No, Dr. Parker agreed. It's proving that cooperation produces better results than conflict. As the 1-year deadline approached, Morrison realized that the success of the enhancement project had created a new problem. Both alien species had become so invested in their human partners that they might not accept the end of the competition. They wanted to continue working with humans indefinitely, but Morrison was beginning to think that might not be a problem at all. It might be the solution he had been looking for all along. The final evaluation day arrived exactly 1 year after the enhancement project began. Representatives from 12 different galactic civilizations had gathered aboard Kepler Station to witness the results of the most unusual diplomatic experiment in galactic history. Morrison stood in the main demonstration hall, watching the enhanced humans prepare for their presentations. Tony Blake's skin now had a subtle crystalline shimmer that caught the light and created tiny rainbow patterns. When he moved, the air around him hummed with barely audible music. Lisa Kim's biomechanical enhancements had become so integrated with her body that it was hard to tell where flesh ended and machine began. War Prima Kethalara and Flesh Admiral Vexthor sat at opposite ends of the judging panel, but Morrison noticed they were no longer radiating the hostile energy they had shown a year ago. Both leaders watched their human partners with what could only be described as pride. "Ladies and gentlemen," Morrison announced to the assembled crowd, "1 year ago these 12 humans volunteered to test whether cooperation could produce better results than conflict. Today, they will demonstrate what they have achieved." Tony. Blake stepped forward first, representing the Zephyrian Enhancement Program. He raised his hands and the air in the chamber began to sing. But this wasn't just Zephyrian harmonic manipulation. Blake was using sound frequencies to control biomechanical components that had been provided by the Nexari team. The demonstration was breathtaking. Blake created a sculpture of pure energy and matter, using harmonic frequencies to guide biomechanical systems that shaped crystalline formations in real time. The sculpture grew and changed, becoming more complex and beautiful with each passing moment. "This should be impossible," one of the galactic judges whispered. "Zephyrian harmonics and Nexari biomechanics are completely incompatible technologies." "Not anymore," Morrison replied quietly. Lisa Kim stepped forward for the Nexari demonstration. Her biomechanical systems interfaced with crystalline harmonic matrices, creating a fusion of technologies that neither species had ever imagined. She grew living crystal structures that pulsed with their own internal music, creating art that was both Zephyrian and Nexari at the same time. The other enhanced humans followed, each one demonstrating abilities that combined both alien technologies in unique ways. Sergeant Brooks used harmonic frequencies to accelerate biomechanical evolution in real time. Engineer Johnson created crystal formations that adapted and changed like living organisms. By the end of the demonstrations, the judging panel was silent. The enhanced humans had not just adopted alien technologies, they had created something entirely new. Dr. Parker presented the scientific analysis to the assembled crowd. The enhanced humans have achieved capabilities that exceed both individual species by significant margins. But more importantly, they have proven that hybrid technologies produce superior results to pure systems. Or Prima Kethalara rose from her seat, her crystal body cycling through colors Morrison had never seen before. "The competition cannot be judged," she announced, her harmonic voice carrying notes of wonder. "These humans have not chosen between Zephyrian harmony and Nexari evolution. They have created something that requires both." Flesh Admiral Vexthor stood as well, his biomechanical systems humming with what Morrison recognized as excitement. "Our species sought victory through destruction. The humans have achieved victory through creation. They have shown us a path we never considered." Morrison stepped forward. "War Prima Kethalara, Flesh Admiral Vexthor, I propose that there is no winner in this competition because the competition itself has changed. Instead of determining which species is superior, we have discovered that cooperation produces results neither species could achieve alone." The two alien leaders looked at each other, and for the first time in 3 centuries, there was no hostility between them. Kethalara's crystal body pulsed with gentle blue light, while Vexthor's mechanical components clicked in rhythm with her harmonics. "What do you propose, Human Morrison?" Kethalara asked. Morrison had been thinking about this moment for months. "I propose the Titan Accords, the first 3-species alliance in galactic history. Instead of competing against each other, we compete against the universe itself. We use our combined technologies to explore new worlds, solve galactic challenges, and help other civilizations achieve what we have achieved here." The proposal created a buzz of excitement throughout the demonstration hall. The galactic judges began discussing the implications of a formal alliance between humanity, the Zephyrians, and the Nexari. Flesh Admiral Vexthor's biomechanical systems cycled through complex patterns as he processed the idea. This alliance would transform our fleets from instruments of war into tools of exploration. Our battle strategies could become plans for terraforming worlds and solving galactic problems, Kethalara added, her harmonic voice creating music. That sounded like hope. Tony Blake spoke for all the enhanced humans. Sir, we've experienced capabilities we never imagined possible. But more than that, we've learned that working together makes everyone stronger. We want to keep exploring what's possible when different species cooperate. Lisa Kim nodded in agreement. The biomechanical and harmonic technologies are evolving faster when they work together. We could help other species achieve the same kind of enhancement and cooperation. Over the next week, representatives from all three species worked together to draft the Titan Accords. The agreement established the Alliance Exploration Fleet, with ships and crews from all three civilizations working together to explore the galaxy. Morrison found himself promoted to Admiral and given command of the new fleet. War Prima Kethalara and Flesh Admiral Vexthor would serve as his co-commanders, leading the largest peaceful exploration force in galactic history. The enhanced humans became the first members of a new branch of the Alliance dedicated to helping other species achieve technological and biological cooperation. They would travel throughout the galaxy, teaching civilizations how to combine their unique abilities for mutual benefit. As the signing ceremony concluded, Dr. Parker approached Morrison with exciting news. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Rim. There's a signal coming from beyond our galaxy that appears to be some kind of mathematical challenge. Morrison smiled as he looked at the combined human-Zephyrian Nexari fleet preparing for its first mission. What had started as humanity's desperate attempt to prevent a war had become the foundation for the galaxy's next great adventure. The war between the Zephyrians and Nexari was over, but not because it had been ended. It had been transformed into something infinitely greater. Their centuries of conflict had taught them to be strong and adaptable. Now they would use those same qualities to explore the unknown and help other civilizations reach their full potential. 3 months later, the Alliance Exploration Fleet launched toward the Galactic Rim, their ships creating a light show that could be seen from every inhabited world in the sector. The combined technologies of three very different species had created vessels capable of achievements none of them could have imagined alone. War. Prima Kethalara's harmonics guided the fleet's navigation systems with musical precision. Flesh Admiral Vexthor's biomechanical innovations kept the ships adapting and improving during the long journey, and the enhanced humans served as bridges between all the different technologies, helping them work together in perfect harmony. Morrison stood on the bridge of the flagship, watching stars he had never seen before grow larger as they approached the edge of known space. Behind them, the galaxy was more peaceful than it had been in centuries. Ahead of them lay mysteries that would challenge everything they thought they knew about the universe. The signal from beyond the galactic rim continued to pulse with its mathematical patterns, as if the universe itself was inviting them to solve its greatest puzzles. Morrison smiled as he gave the order to continue their journey into the unknown. Humanity had been sent to broker peace between two warring species. Instead, they had discovered that the greatest victories came not from ending conflicts, but from transforming them into opportunities for growth and cooperation. The adventure was just beginning.